So live on. Hello, good morning, everybody. If you can hear me properly, just say something so that we can begin. If you can hear me properly, say something. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. If you can hear me, say something so that we can begin. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. If you can hear me, say something, and then we'll begin the show that you deserve. You deserve it, ladies and gentlemen. The show that you deserve. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. I got a comment. It says yes. Miss Sneha Shashidharan says yes. Okay, so then we'll begin. YouTube is ready, LinkedIn is ready, everything is ready. So let's begin. Let me just get my charger. 1 second. So we don't have a technical difficulty in the middle of the session. Perfecto. Alright, Neha and everybody else. Miss Neha, thank you for your word. Now we'll begin. People on YouTube, if you can hear me, say something and we're gonna start. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Alright then. I am being clear. That's good news. So we'll begin. Hello everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our wives, our husbands, our friends, everybody. And just when we thought we couldn't get any better, couldn't possibly get any better, well, it just did. Things just got better, ladies and gentlemen, with Thinker's Frequency. This morning, we begin our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Like, imagine tuning into a fun session of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before you start your day. Well, your imagination just came true. But before we begin, we'd follow the tradition, right? You know the tradition, right? The tradition of the simultaneous sip. All you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup, a mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having lemon tea. And here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god. So nice. It's so nice. You know, the simultaneous sip says something. It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. It's a pretty powerful thing to say, right? Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you for letting me know. I am audible and this is great. Before we begin with the news of the day, uh, did anybody notice what happened to Yes Bank stock yesterday? Did you see Yes Bank stock yesterday? Yes Bank stock went 8% up, 8.5% up. And right before the stock market opened, we do this every day at 8 to 9, right? I had said that Yes Bank stock could get a fillip because of the Sumitomo's acquisition news, right? And then you saw Yes Bank stock going up. Does that mean that we have an insight to the stock world now? No, I won't say that. I would never say that. But it is what happened. In fact, one of the days, you remember, I said when I was talking about Ola Electric that Ola stock will tumble very soon. Despite Goldman saying that they have a buy rating, I said that this is gonna screw up the Ola stock and Ola Electric, and that day itself, Ola fell 10%. So, guys who are following Thinker's frequency, the insights are actually useful, right? Or maybe useful, maybe not, but definitely very interesting. So, uh, beginning with the insights and analysis and thinkers frequency audience, I'd like to thank Mr. Somanna for making a very generous donation on my website. That's very sweet of you, Mr. Somanna. If you're listening, thank you. Okay, so let's begin. If you can see, uh, Apple has slammed the EU order to open iPhone ecosystem to rivals. So EU has been talking about Apple's protectionism. I mean, it's walled garden where it doesn't let other companies build on its ecosystem. It's a very protected play. So EU had given them a directive that you've got to open your uh, system for other people. Like Meta, Mark Zuckerberg recently came out on Joe Rogan's podcast and said Apple has been very defensive on its turf. It doesn't let their VR play, the Meta glasses, communicate with Apple devices. It just makes it impossible for people to tune into Meta glasses on Apple. And those kinds of protectionist orders have inhibited innovation, people claim. Companies like Meta, Garmin, Garmin, which is a very, very solid player, Google, Spotify, a lot of people have accused Apple of such a protectionist walled garden play. But Apple has said that it's gonna contest this hearing because this would inhibit innovation, it is said, which is funny because everybody has different interpretations of innovation, right? So Apple says it will be good, not good for customers if it just opens itself up to different players. That's the usual big tech BS play. Okay. Bristol to pay BioNTech up to $11 billion in cancer deal. So there's a company called Bristol Myers Squibb. It's gonna pay $11 billion to uh, BioNTech for a drug which they've created for the cancer treatment. It's gonna be a license fee. Some of it is gonna an upfront fee of 1.5 billion, then 2 billion in installments through 2028. But do you think it's just a question for you all? Do you really think uh, these biotech companies or these big pharma companies are actually interested in solving the cancer crisis? Doesn't it seem weird that these people have not been able to make progress for such a major disease in all these years? Do you think the distrust which occurs against these big pharma companies is justified? I don't know. Food for thought, right? I can't say anything about this because even if you mention big pharma or anything, you get censored. Microfin lenders write off 2.5 crore bad loans. Five listed NBFCs, MFI, clean balance sheet. So, okay, there were some bad loans on the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, credit, lying around on these people's sheet. and which was bothering because recovery of these bad loans, these small uh, bad loans at the bottom of the pyramid, was proving to be very difficult, and that wasn't happening at all. So they've just decided to write those 2.5 crore loans and move forward, clean their sheet, move forward. When you write off a loan, it doesn't mean that you've uh, forgiven the loan, or like India had some write-offs of corporate instruments, corporate debt. So people said that they've just like write-off is a very necessary thing to do, because if the debt in your bad debt in your sheet stays for long, it causes problems. So they finally wrote it off. Merck, Skoda, Volkswagen may make in India. Tesla to stay away. Tesla doesn't want to make in India. Tesla just wants to have showrooms in India where it could sell its imported cars. Now, this is an interesting thing to question because India was trying to get Tesla to make in India. Excuse me for a second. Just 1 second. Got it. Yeah. So India was trying to get Tesla to make in India, and Elon Musk was supposed to have a meeting with India. If you remember that conversation, when Mr. Modi ji, went to US, he met a few people, one of whom was Elon Musk, other was Nassim Taleb, and a lot of other people, and he there were talks of Tesla going to make in India. But then suddenly that meeting was cancelled and Elon Musk had to go to China. Coincidence? Coincidence that Elon Musk actually had to cancel his meeting in India, which was talking about him setting up manufacturing units, and then it just got cancelled and he went to China instead? Not a coincidence. Elon Musk, Tesla has a lot of manufacturing happening in China, and maybe it doesn't want to ruffle those feathers. So for now, Tesla is not gonna make in India, or maybe it seems feels that the market isn't ready, and it'll never be able to make the money back because Indian premium market is still pretty small, right? So that's something to look at. Fin support likely for small hydel projects. Hydroelectric power uh, been very difficult to has been instrumental in the Indian energy story, but it's been very difficult to set up because when you set up a hydel project, it takes a lot of land away, and certainly those that land parcel almost always has a lot of green area. So it proves to be an environmentally expensive project. And you remember Narmada Bachao Andolan, and a lot of Andolans have been uh, conducted to prevent hydel projects from growing real. But still, India needs them. Even though the development of hydel projects has slowed down in India, Fin support likely for small hydel projects. That's interesting. That is interesting. Petrol sales up, strong travel demand. Strong travel demand, which is leading to petrol sales up. This is why India is talking about electrification, right? So today we are just gonna discuss how electrification real is a real priority for the Indian government, because they are thinking we really got to put pedal to the metal to shorten our imports, or to decrease our imports of oil. Because if the grid is electrified and your cars are running on the grid, and that grid could use future sources of power like nuclear or solar or anything, but if your car runs on gasoline, it basically doesn't change. Which, but I personally feel all the electrification is essentially handing over the world to China, right? Because they make everything, every part of the EV value chain depends on China. So even now, Thinkers Frequency earlier episodes, people will remember that we discussed how China's rare magnet, rare earth magnet led to a big jiffy in the EV market. Like Bajaj and everybody were concerned that they're going to run out of magnet supply by the end of May, which has already happened. And if they don't get that magnet uh, shipment, which is stuck in Chinese port, the EV production will face a major disruption. So what does that say? So what does that say about uh, the whole EV play and its dependence on China? That's why you'll realize Japanese companies have not been very pro electrification move. They've been trying to push the hybrid narrative that we believe the future is hybrid, not electric. And that's very interesting because it's all at the end of the day politics, right? If the world goes electric and the world essentially becomes dependent on China for all its supplies, for all the electric vehicle supplies, all the electric vehicles parts, the battery, everything, what happens to countries who've been doing well without the electric uh, play? That's a very interesting question which everybody needs to think about. Like, is electric really the future, or should it be? I have I have thoughts on it, just like everybody else, and so does Japan. So let's see. There were talks of ethanol blended petrol, and there were talks of green hydrogen by Mr. Nitin Gadkari, who was trying to position green hydrogen as an alternative to uh, electric vehicles. You remember that? But that certainly has lost steam, it seems, because making green hydrogen has proved to be expensive, even though people are setting up units for green hydrogen. So you never know. But at the moment, the network effects are favoring the electric vehicle play. Indigenous artillery ammo nears completion. User trials in November, DRDO develops 4 variants with private public sector partners. This is again gonna be a very good news for defense stocks. Some of the defense stock. Please don't take this show as a stock tip show. It's not. But it's very interesting because sources said that 4 variants of the 155 artillery ammunition have been tested over the past 2 years and have found to match or exceed requirements of the army. This is great. This is absolutely amazing, right? So the ammunition is being made under the development cum production partner program with 2 industry partners chosen to make prototypes. The 2 companies are Reliance Infrastructure, owned by Anil Ambani, and state-owned Yantra India Limited, and Reliance Infrastructure. So, not giving you stock trips, but anyway, this is a very good development with DRDO being able to make something, because DRDO was a disgraced organization just a few years ago. Like a decade ago, DRDO was an essential disgrace. Why? Why was DRDO a disgrace? Because people pointed out that DRDO sanctioned a lot of things but could never make them. So there was an INSAS rifle which DRDO made. INSAS was the first indigenous rifle that India made, that was made with DRDO. And it was so bad that Nepalese army actually gave it back. They didn't even want to store it. It jammed at high altitudes and low temperatures. INSAS had a very bad history. And so Nepalese army just returned it because this was a piece of shit, right? And Arjun tank was sanctioned in the 1980s, and it got uh, inducted in 2016. When did Arjun tank induction Arjun tank revised to 2028-2029, postponed, has hit a further delay. Entered service in the Indian Army in 2004. So you can imagine a plant, a tank being sanctioned in the 80s and getting inducted in the service in 2004. By the time it came to service, it was already outdated, right? and that's a big problem. So that was the reputation of DRDO just a few years ago, and now DRDO is actually killing it. It's proven its mettle in the recent conflict. It's been able to make things that work, that don't jam, that don't get screwed, which is great. How great can this be? This is very good news for the Indian defense sector. But yeah, Maoism, it seems, has come to a halt in India. 16 Maoists lay down arms. Very good news for the eastern part of our country, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, every place. That's pretty interesting. Unfortunately, Sikkim has had a landslide, which has led to three people, three armed forces personnel dying. Anyway, Dhumal wants cricket to revolve around its big star T20 leagues. The economy of cricket, 70% of ICC's revenues come from India. Did you know that? India is essentially all the money that the international cricket makes. And it's realizing that T20 leagues are better than bilateral shows. Bilateral, I mean, two country matches and so on and so forth. Leagues are proving to be more rewarding as far as viewership and engagement is considered than, let's say, uh, bilateral tournaments, Sri Lanka, India, and so on and so forth, which is an interesting shift because people used to be caring a lot about these tournaments before, but probably because of some geopolitical stuff or whatever, the news has gone down. Tuesday blues, midweek IPL final stumps eateries and bars. People say people don't eat non vegetarian food on Tuesday and drink, so it might just be a problem for the IPL because people think that their consumption will go down because an IPL match is happening on Tuesday today. So they otherwise they would have expected a 100% jump, but now they're only expecting a 30% jump. Says Zoravar Kalra from Massive Restaurants. Massive Restaurants, if you know, runs Furzi Cafe amongst other very big chain of restaurants. So Massive, the name is Massive, and they're trying to live up to their name. Reliance, RIL, not the Anil Ambani group, the Mukesh Ambani group, is the only Indian firm in the top 30 listed global tech companies. So it's ranked 23rd as of now. It's a $216 billion group by market cap, and it's ranked 23 at the 23rd spot. The first eight spots are, of course, US tech companies, right? Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Broadcom, who else is there? Google, and so on. So that's pretty interesting. People would think Tata could be it, but Tata isn't a tech play, right? So RIL, Reliance Industries, the only Indian firm to have made it to the list top 30 publicly traded technology companies. It's positioning itself as a technology company. That's interesting. Uh, a very interesting part is that KKR has given a 600 million debt to Manipal Group. Manipal is Mr. Ranjan Pai. He has built a chain of hospitals, not restaurants, hospitals. And Manipal has gotten a debt of 600 million by KKR. KKR is the private equity play. By the way, people who've watched Barbarians at the Gate, a very good movie, a very, very good movie, will have a very interesting anecdote with KKR when it was trying to buy RJR Nabisco. It was a merger of two tobacco companies. Very interesting movie. Great book as well. But anyway, KKR was looking at buying 48% stake in Manipal a few years ago. When was this? 2023. For valuing the chain for 35,000 crores. But now the group didn't must have not wanted to sell, and now they've taken debt instead, which is very interesting. India advocates more connected, accessible aviation network, says Prime Minister Modi. So this is in continuation to what we discussed yesterday or day before. Listeners could remind me that the Emirates CEO wanted India to open up the seat limit for their airlines. So India and Emirates have a deal according to which it was a 2014 bilateral agreement, according to which both sides were permitted to have 65,000 seats in the either in others turf, right? 65,000 airline seats. But now Indian travel to Dubai has increased so much that 65,000 seat limit has been uh, superseded, or let's say crossed by Emirates. So they wanted Indians to actually let go of that limit of 65,000 so they could have more share in Indians going to Dubai. Right now, that is up for Indian players, right? So they won't be able to. So they're saying it's protectionism. You shouldn't keep such limits to aviation market. So because it hinders growth and so on and so forth. But Indigo, the chief of Indigo, has said that just because you make more noise doesn't mean you're right. So it's a pretty confrontational remark by the airline chief, who's saying that just because you're loud doesn't make you right, because it wants the seat market, right? It wants more share. So everything, I believe everything at the end of the day tends to politics, right? If India would have just let go of that limit, Emirates would have benefited and Indigo would have lost money. And but India didn't, so Indigo still has that market share just because of a protectionist stance or a pro national company stance, right? This is this is what makes you think about entrepreneurship in general. Is it just like opportunities that the government provides, or is it more individualist and heroic than that? But yeah, definitely, uh, you know, something to ponder about. Gaming company MPL accuses ASI of tampering with their ads. So ASCI, the organization which is basically looking at uh, Standard Council of India, Advertising Standards Council, they pointed it out that there's some problem with MPL ads because they have been proving to be misleading as far as sales are concerned. Thinkers of Frequency audience will know that we discussed how these gaming companies have been one of the biggest violators of ASCI codes. But MPL has gone to court. They are accusing ASCI of tampering with their ads to make a point. So they wrote a white paper. ASCI guys wrote a white paper in which they showed some of the ads of MPL and showed how they've been violating the code. But in that presentation or in that white paper, they actually tampered with their ads. So it was misrepresentation, which MPL has taken to heart, and it's saying we're gonna we're gonna fight this out. Major auto companies sales hit a speed breaker on weak demand. Uh, we discussed that in a few episodes, that why people are looking at auto demand slowing down. Actually, it's not slowing down. It had a very solid play. So it's a very large market. The company made a statement yesterday that India is selling like 4 million, 40 lakh cars every year, right? Just last month it sold 3.5 lakh cars, this country. So the base is large, which leads to less growth. Also, the entry level cars aren't really uh, selling as much. So whatever activity is happening at the bigger end of the spectrum, the larger end of the spectrum. RC Bhargav sir, the chairman of Suzuki in India, Maruti Suzuki, he's a legend, by the way. 90-year-old person, sounds absolutely amazing. He's just extraordinary. There's nobody like RC Bhargav sir. He said, how can you expect uh, people to be buying cars, the big cars, when 88% of make less than Indian households make less than 12 lakh rupees a year? How can they buy a 14 lakh car when a household, 88% of households make less than 12 lakh rupees a year? So nice. He has such data points at his fingers. Just imagine a 90-year-old person uh, still killing it. It's absolutely unbelievable. Supreme Court remarks clear way for government to offer AGR relief to telcos, says Vodafone India CEO. This Vodafone India case is hilarious, man. India government has taken a 49% share of it, and at a premium when the company is going in the doldrums. Absolutely, there's no hope for the company to survive. And with BSNL already a private public company, but just to have India uh, having more than two telecom operators, we 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 need to pay for Vodafone India. So now they've been asking for AGR dues write off. So AGR is adjusted gross revenue, and some of the spectrum fee is allocated as per the AGR. So there's some 3.5%, 4%, or whatever is the spectrum. So they're just asking for a waiver because they have to pay like 76,000 crores in dues. So if the government can waive that amount, they'll be a little cash easy. And they've been asking for these handouts forever, which is, should India have saved Vodafone India, or should India have just let it die like every other telecom? Would it have been better for India to have just two telecom operators? I'd like you to share your thoughts. It's a pretty interesting question. We discussed in the earlier episodes why it would have been why Airtel needed Vodafone to survive, right? Because Airtel had Indus Towers. Airtel had a company called Indus Tower, which is the tower play, and Vodafone was its customer, and it had a lot of dues to Indus Tower. So if Vodafone went under without having paid Indus Tower's dues, Airtel would have been screwed. So it makes sense for Airtel to bat for three telecom because it essentially was a vendor to one of the people in trouble. But did it make sense for the Indian government to buy 49% of Vodafone Idea at a premium when their shares are like 6 rupees, and the cost of them acquiring those shares was like 11 rupees net cost, if I'm not wrong? So that's weird, right? That's weird. Holiday travel, 88.8% growth in petrol sales, as we discussed. PNG connection, gas discoms to be fined for missing targets. So somebody is, let Airtel and BSNL compete. So are you suggesting, says Mr. Sumit Kumar? Mr. Sumit Kumar, are you saying that BSNL and Vodafone Idea should be merged? Or are you saying that Vodafone Idea should have been let to its own devices? Basically, it should have died, and then BSNL should have been the only government player? Is that what you're saying? Because the government has been trying to have more than two private players. That that was the strategy. But anyway, gas discoms are to be fined because they're not being able to meet targets of laying pipes for home gas connections. So people say that CNG is an extremely profitable business, but laying pipes for houses is a very difficult play. And these companies had bid for it, and they were supposed to lay pipes, and it it didn't happen. So they haven't met like 40%, 50%. In some cases, only 12% of cumulative targets have been met. Data published by Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board (PNGRB) shows that on average, winners of these four rounds have achieved less than 12% of their cumulative targets as of March 2026. 2025, sorry. So 12%. Mr. Harsh Gupta, right? I think this is the only possible way out. Best for all stakeholders involved, including us, customers, and taxpayers. Mr. Harsh, could you please say what you're talking about? What is the only possible way out? That Vodafone is left to die? Is that what you're saying? Uh, Please clarify. But anyway, so but gas connections are actually great, man. More convenient than the cylinder play. It's much convenient for the customer. However, I can understand why it's not a great proposition for these companies. It's very difficult. Conducted from 2018 to 2022, these four rounds awarded two-thirds of India's city gas distribution licenses with a combined target of connecting 112 million households, about 90% of national goal of 126 million households. Like, nothing could happen in that front. right? This is very interesting, right? Mr. Harsh Gupta say, no, a bailout by converting to equity. I think it's the only possible way out, best for all stakeholders. Okay, so you think a government bailing out Vodafone is the best possible outcome? Well, well, I, I don't know. Maybe we didn't have any option. Yes, BSNL should be revived, and there should be one private and government player for strong competition in the mobile space. Okay, says Mr. Sumit Kumar. All right, that's interesting. City gas distribution had to connect 19 million households up to March, but the number just reached 2.2 million. How sad is that? Anyway, lending cart breaches a covenant on FY 24-25 law, seeks waiver. So lending cart is a company. It as the name suggests, it's a lending platform. So they had taken debt. They had taken debt, and one of the covenants of that debt, meaning one of the conditions of that debt, was that they cannot make a loss in a consolidated basis in any fiscal year. But they ended up making a loss in FY25, 288 crore loss in FY25, which essentially led to a breach of covenant, which means that the lenders can now choose to terminate the uh, debt facility and ask for prepayments. Otherwise, there's a set time, right? Where you can have the prepayments coming. But in a breach of covenant case, the companies who've lent you money, they can take extreme measures to get their money back. So that could be a case for lending card. However, uh, it'll get an easy way out because Temasek is behind it, and uh, you know it will probably get a waiver because bondholders are still positive that they've not been default. There's no case of default as far as lending card is considered. So they may have made a loss of 250 crores or something, but at least they didn't default on their coupon. So yeah. New steel tariffs mixed bag for Indian companies making in US. So we discussed steel tariffs by Trump, Team Trump, right? Where he was keeping his campaign promise of reviving the steel manufacturers in US. So that had a bad impact for Indian steel manufacturers because India sent some 5 billion of steel to US and 0.86 billion of aluminium. But it's turned out to be a good news for Indian companies with plants in US. So JSW has an Ohio plant, which is suddenly seeing a lot of positive action because if plants in America are being protected by tariffs, it's gonna be good for the company, right? And there's another Indian company which has a plant in US. It's called Hindalco, uh, which has a US based subsidiary Novelis. So these people are like very happy. They're happy, which is interesting, right? So maybe JSW stock is something that we could look at today. Well, this is not a stock tip platform, by the way. Sorry about that. People are like, let's get some stock tips. Digital rupee is here to stay. Do you know about digital rupee? Central bank digital currency, CBDC. Indian government had come out with this a couple of years ago, I guess. And I never got the point. I never got the point of a CBDC. Earlier, it was supposed to be India's answer to the cryptocurrency play. But they essentially just came with a rupee in digital form. So that sort of is, people are saying it's growing. Retail value is up nearly 180 times. So do you understand how CBDC works? If people need an explanation, I could help them. So CBDC is essentially a wallet play for Indian rupee. So right now UPI, you have UPI, and UPI you're transferring money from your bank account to other person's bank account through the UPI protocol, right? That's UPI. But with CBDC, what happens is that you keep your rupee in a wallet, which is not your bank account, it's a wallet. It's a government wallet. Now, money goes from this wallet to that wallet instead of the bank account. And that digital rupee is being tracked, is being controlled. So, just like printing notes, government is printing digital notes and keeping it in a vault, and then people are using their wallet to transfer money. So it's basically just digital banking transaction in a different form. So people are saying it's making, uh, it's gonna be good. New drugs key for Sun Pharma facing profitability pressure. So Sun Pharma is trying to come out with two drugs, and those drugs are gonna cost company a lot of money as far as marketing play and R&D play. So Sun Pharma might just face a lot of profitability pressure going forward, which is not gonna not gonna help its stock, of course. So these two drugs, just to let you know, are, one is from alopecia, for alopecia treatment. Alopecia is that balding disease which happens, right, where the person suddenly sees a lot of balding. That's called alopecia. And the other drug is osteoarthritis. So that's a bone condition, of course. Launch Lequel C, which is used to treat alopecia, and a drug developed by therapeutics. So plans to launch. Understood. So that's pretty interesting. You're gonna watch out for Sun Pharma stock. NSE is eager to list, but its regulators have many concern. The regulator has many concern with NSE going to list. NSE is, of course, National Stock Exchange, and it has wanted to list for a couple of years now, many years now actually. 2018 is when it started its bid for going public. uh, 2016 or 18, and it has not. Yeah, October 2016 is when NSE wanted to go public, but has not been able to go public because of a lot of issues with the company's governance. Do you know about these issues, NSE? I'll tell you. So NSE had a co-location case. Co-location case is where there are preferred spots near the stock exchange where the companies or people or the brokers who have that spot have a trading advantage. Because of being closer to the location, their deals are executed faster. This is like an HFT thing where time for your execution deal goes by many microseconds, very very minuscule change. But since you are being able to make that transaction faster, it leads to better trading outcomes. So that was a co-location, very big scandal with NSE, which hasn't been solved as yet. And people who've read, there's a very good book on it. It's called Flash Boys by Michael Lewis, which talks about the whole HFT play. You know, uh, in the beginning of this HFT era, and now it's widespread in US, companies were essentially just paying top premium to be closer to a particular place where they could have a direct line to the stock exchange so that their deals could be executed faster. Just basis that 0.0006 second differential, their deals could be traded faster and they could actually win the stock market game. The high frequency trading play. Flash Boys by Michael Lewis is the book which brought this to everyone. And they also tried to make a movie on this, Hummingbird Project. It's not a great movie, but it tried to adapt Flash Boys essentially in film form. So one of those guys trying to make a straight pipeline, connecting absolutely straight. And in fact, they had to be so particular that even the Earth's curvature was being accounted for. So they wanted the line to be so straight, not like this, so that they could save a few microseconds or maybe even smaller than that, just to make money, execute their trades faster. And how does that happen is a very long conversation which we'll have probably someday else. Uh, Small hydro projects may get 30% aid on project costs, as I we discussed that. India should focus on electrifying mobility. We discussed this, right? Should it or does electrifying mobility just leads to concentrated power in the hands of just one company? We got to think about it, because if we don't counter China's ascent like this, it could mean to it could mean a lot of problems, right? China having the entire value chain by itself. What do you do about that? How do you fight that? That's also a very very interesting question which people need to think about. But at the time, people think it makes sense to for India to electrify. PSU banks set up a common play for debt recovery. Everybody wants to recover debt, right? Medical representatives have been banned from visiting doctors in government hospitals. Medical representative, those poor MR guys, who work really really hard on behalf of the pharma companies to sell their drug to doctors, to recommend doctors, so that the doctors can recommend the drugs to people. They have been banned from visiting government hospitals. Medical representatives cannot visit government hospitals. They are advised to connect through social media or email or other digital media. That's tricky. How are you gonna get doctors to, uh, you know, how are medical representatives gonna contact doctors through email and other media? Because they have a very difficult job. Like, these people have to, doctors treat them like shit. It's very hard, and but they have to do it. Heart of the matter: sales of cardiac drugs beat stronger. 11% annual rise. Well, that's no surprise, right? People are falling off the cliff. Do you see a rise in heart attack cases these days? A lot of heart attacks happening in with people of, like, they shouldn't be going through such attacks at such age. People are very young, in their 30s, even late 20s. They are suddenly falling off. They're getting heart attacks all over the place. Turns out it's good business for cardiac drugs. Sad, but it is what it is. A lot of people have also claimed that cardiac arrests have something to do with uh, the COVID vaccine, pericarditis, myocarditis, and so on and so forth. It's actually been established pretty solidly, but nobody can say about that. Doximity. Mr. Harsh Gupta says, doximity. What do you mean by doximity, sir? I I'll have to look it up. Doximity. Okay. Okay. Oh, nice. Thank you for that. Doximity is a professional medical network and digital platform primarily used by healthcare professionals, particularly physicians, to collect, collaborate, and stay informed. So you're saying medical representatives could use Doximity? It's very hard. Their job is so hard that these platforms don't have to do it. They can't do it. They actually have to pursue them, request them, drop brochures. You see a lot of doctors having those globes and a lot of merchandise, just so they can keep themselves in their brain space. Anyway, uh, Wall Street Journal says Adani under US lens over alleged Iranian LPG imports. Group denies any involvement in Iranian LPG trade, says it's unaware of any probe. Yet again, attack on Adani, by Wall Street Journal report. Wall Street Journal. Elon Musk has categorically referred to Wall Street Journal as a pure propaganda piece, not a perfect solution, Mr. Gupta says. Yeah, you're right. So Adani is under US lens over Iranian LPG imports. Adani says we don't have anything to do with that. We don't know, sir. We don't know. That's pretty interesting. Uh, Remember anybody, people talking about Adani and Hindenburg and people spreading it all over? Like Hindenburg has really done a lot of great work by exposing Adani and so on and so on and so on. And what happened about all that? Right? Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. In fact, the whole trade where Adani paid off some Andhra Pradesh government to get their tender cleared, indirectly, essentially bribing an Indian officer, and somehow the US court was concerned with that. Just a bunch of BS. Tata Electronics is eyeing Malaysia foray into for via chip fab acquisition. Tata is really going strong with the whole chip manufacturing play, which is understandable considering context. It needs to, and now it's going to Malaysia with some acquisition. KC Ang drive acquisition efforts in talks progress. Several multiple semiconductor players. Uh, Krutrim, the Bhavish Agrawal AI company, finds few takers for its LLMs and crowd products. Tepid response due in large part due to poor documentation, lack of tech maturity, says sources. Downloads in the past month: Krutrim 171, Krutrim 2 1356, Servam 2800, Mistral 1.2 lakh, DeepSeek 6.7 lakh. So if DeepSeek is the benchmark, it has 6.7 lakh downloads, and Servam has 2,500, 2,800, and Krutrim has 71. That's pretty uphill climb, right? And with Ola Electric going, interestingly, Mr. Bhavish Agrawal has pledged his Ola Electric shares to fund DeepSeek, Krutrim. Now, what happens to that pledge? It's a question which somebody will need to answer, because Ola Electric stock is going to toilet, right? So what happens to that pledge? Does it still hold? B2B company Udan bags 114 million at a flat valuation. $1.8 billion valuation. Earlier, its valuation was $3.2 billion in 2021. Then it came down to $1.8 billion. And now in 2023, now in 2025, it's again at $1.8 billion. Udan has raised a lot of money. Udan was founded by Flipkart's executives. Mr. Sujit was one of the key people. Krutrim is available on Ola app. Are those numbers included? No. It's about LLM and crowd product which is being used by people, the tech guys for API and stuff. So no, those numbers are not included. They're just individual calls, right, on Ola app. These people, artificial intelligence, according to some founders, developers who have evaluated the offering. So it's a developer play, obviously. So food delivery companies are exploring new areas of growth because the market has essentially cratered. Well, every market has a ceiling, and it seems food delivery ceiling was about 1.5 to $2 billion, right? That's what food deliveries ceiling was. Just let us look at Zomato's FY25 revenue from food delivery. Food delivery was 8,000 crores for Zomato, and since Swiggy is almost there, so let's say 6,000 7,000 crores for Swiggy, so 8,000 6,000, that's 14,000 crores. That's basically 1 billion and 6, that's 1.7 1.8 billion, right? So 1.8 billion was essentially the ceiling to which food delivery as a business could grow. 1.8 billion, which is not a small amount, but that was the TAM, so to speak, of food delivery, and it's now not growing anymore. So people are trying to find ways to just somehow keep growing it. Structurally, it's very hard to open a restaurant. The constraints are very local in nature. It's getting better, but still not there. Supply side constraints. People are saying it's supply side constraints. I don't think it's a supply side constraints. That's a marketing spin. that these companies are trying to give. It's not a supply side constraint at all, it's a demand side constraint. I don't think there's more demand for food delivery than $2 billion. Dollars. What do you guys think? Is it a supply side constraint or is it a demand side constraint? I think it's a demand side constraint, right? This is how far the market could go. It's not because people have less restaurants to order from, it's that people don't want to order more. That's what I think. Which is bad news for Zomato stock, by the way. Very bad news. Again, we're not a stock tip platform. Not a stock tip platform. Why Trump turned down this billionaire for NASA's job? So Elon Musk's special, Mr. Isaac Men, sorry, has been turned down for the top job at NASA by Trump. Apparently because he gave Democrats some donations before, but he already told them, so nobody knows why he was turned down. That's very interesting how politics works in US, right? And in India, of course. Finally, Gukesh, Mr. Gukesh D, such a young, interesting fellow, has beaten Magnus Carlsen, and for the first time in classical chess, and has created history because Magnus Carlsen is a freak of nature and is said to be like the greatest of all time. He's the person who ended Vishwanathan Anand sir's streak, essentially. Gukesh has really made history. He's one for the history books. And I wrote a post on it thanking Vishwanathan Anand sir for this feat, because apparently Vishwanathan Anand sir, along with Westbridge Capital, set up VACA, Westbridge Anand Chess Academy. It began as a totally online course or online academy in the height of COVID, and it just with 25 crore rupees, it has given like 20 people, 20 chess grandmasters from India who are making waves, like Pragnananda, Nihal Serene, Gukesh, of course, and so on. So Anand sir did so much as a chess player in the country, and his journey didn't stop there. When he stopped making history as a player, he essentially ushered a new era of champions for India. So all thanks to Anand sir. We are very, very lucky to have him. And with that, we come to the end of this episode of Thinker's Frequency. I hope you have a beautiful day at work. I hope you could sleep well. Apparently, Chinese guys did a research in which they didn't let their table tennis player, ping pong players, sleep for 36 hours. And they wanted to conduct a research whether they become better at ping pong if they didn't sleep for 36 hours. Well, they could have just asked me, or just looked around. What do you think will happen if we don't let let the players sleep for 36 hours? Are they gonna do better? I wonder who sanctions these researches and who pays for them. I mean, how do people get money for this shit, right? It's just unbelievable. Like, you can get money for a research where you make a table tennis player not sleep for 36 hours and then make him play and see what happens. Now, what are they going to do? Do this research on tennis players? Football players? And they're going to spend money on that? Well, wish that money fell on me, right? Forget chess. Hated him for his number one position on FPL. What? I didn't get that. Hated him for his number one position on FPL? Are you talking about Carlsen? I didn't get it. I'm sorry. But yeah, this brings us to the end. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. We are making a lot of progress, man, at Thinker's Frequency. A lot of people joining in every day, both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And people gaining a lot, people becoming regular listeners. And the stock tips also going well. Again, this is not for that. It's just a joke. Yeah? So, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis. Bye-bye.